Welcome to I Love My HBCU ? The podcast where we express our undeniable love for HBCUs, but where we are also not afraid to address a few tough questions. So, sit back, learn a little, love a lot, and rep your HBCU. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of I Love My HBCU ? With yours truly, Tosin Richard. And if you're watching, which I hope you do, because there is a gorgeous human being that is gracing our screen, and she just showed you which HBCU she's representing. It is Norfolk State. Dr. Grayson, how are you?
I am great, Tosin. Thank you so much for having me on today. And thank you for recognizing my sweater and where, I did my undergraduate degree, a proud Spartan, behold the green and gold. So super excited to talk about my love for my HBCU today.
I love it. So listen, anyone that I'm not going to say stalks because that's a little creepy, but anyone that peruses your Instagram especially, they know that you like to have fun. You are fun. Like you are fun. No, you are. You're fun. B, there's something you wrote on there that I was able to grab before we started. And so yes, we're going to talk about HBCU, but I want to talk about you and all of you because you're kind of just sort of amazing, right? You wrote on one of your posts that you got your BA at an HBCU, your master's and PhD at an Ivy, and then postdoc at Big Ten. But then you ended it with something that I thought was really cool, that you have the ultimate schooling experience. I know we're gonna get into the HBCU bit heavily in a hot second, but I kind of want to just hear about the holistic. That phrase hit me in the best of ways. The ultimate schooling experience. What did you mean?
That is a great question, great observation, and thank you for doing some research. I like it. I wouldn't call it stalking either. You're a researcher, okay? We're going to put that out there. And so for me, I came from a background of military parents. So they both had high school educations. And so they wanted me and my brother and my other little sisters to make sure we did one thing that they didn't do, which was go to college. So they weren't really familiar with necessarily HBCU culture or going to HBCU school or PWI, all these terms, Big Ten, wasn't really like a thing in our household. But I noticed as I went along my academic career, like I went to an HBCU and then I went to an Ivy League and then I'm at a Big Ten where sports is this huge thing. And it's just like, all right, like I think I've really touched almost every kind of education system you could go through, maybe except for a community college or technical college. But what I meant by that is it's just great to see how far I've come, to see the different kind of school systems that I've been in, and I've still been able to thrive and look where I'm at. It doesn't really matter where you start or really where you end, as long as you keep going on the journey. And so I just was highlighting that in that post. But thank you. I wrote that a long time ago, so thanks for jogging my memory.
That's why I didn't want to tell on myself that we were stalking your page. Research. So my team knows this, and you met a couple of them before we started. So I'm the one that said to them, we have to have Dr. Grayson on the podcast, and then they went going after you. This is the truth. I do find you to be a fun celebrity academic, and I'll tell you why I'm terming you this way. So I'm an academic as well, and I'm on more the boring side, right? And so when kids are going to college and they see Dr. Tosin and they see Dr. Grayson makes this look like this is the place to be. You do want to go into chemistry. You do want to go into biomedical engineering. Like it's like all the things you studied slightly give me a headache just saying them, right? And they don't seem fun. Like on the surface, they don't seem fun, but you've managed to give this, you've managed to brand it in such a way that I don't see how, whether or not you're ever told, I don't see how your very presence isn't encouraging more, and I'm going to say black and brown,
Mhm.
more black and brown women to go into these STEM spaces. Um, I just want to hear you talk about it. There's no question here. I just want to hear you talk about it because it's fun to watch you do you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And coming from initially like a shy, very introverted person to
Wow.
being more confident, outgoing, but still introverted person, I realized that a lot of what I was going through in my journey, I couldn't just keep it to myself. I couldn't just hold on to it. Like I really had to kind of show people like although I'm going through this time, I'm in an unfamiliar environment, learning so many new skills. Like I sometimes, you question your abilities, but I'm still having fun along the way. I still have friends. We still go out. I'm very much a wine drinker. I love speakeasies. I like art. Now a plant mom. I got a couple in my house. You can't see the one behind me. Um, I like to go to carnival. I love the history and the culture just behind that whole celebration.
Hmm.
And that was introduced to me by somebody that was also in grad school with me. And so it's
Nice.
like we all have fun. And so it's not like we're constantly in the lab, constantly doing experiments or constantly publishing papers. That comes with it. But at the same time, you have to have a life. You have to have a life outside of your lab. Being a scientist is what I do and is a part of who I am, but it's not completely who I am. So holistically as a person, as you can see, I like to have fun. Now the celebrity part, I'm always like, no, 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 no. I'm just Korie. I'm just Korie. Just because some of that, it's always been something I've felt was a little weird to me, just because that shine sometimes brings unwanted and unnecessary attention. And I get all kinds of DMs and stuff from people. But I also realize what comes with that is seeing someone that people can relate to, seeing
Yeah.
someone that they can think of, oh, I actually know a biomedical engineer, Dr. Korie, or, I know someone in STEM, or now they have a connection. So I understand I have to put my own kind of selfish need to hide sometimes and really just be out there and continue to be who I am, because that you really don't know who you're touching when you're sharing your story. But that relation, relatability is what people see. And it really kind of opens people's minds up to what is possible and what can be. I used to identify as a first generation student, but I think my mom kind of also watching me going through my education journey, she pursued her bachelor's and she just graduated last summer. And then she said something about now she's in a master's program and now she wants to do a PhD. And I'm like, girl, all power to you. Okay. But I think for me, it's really about showing my family, my friends, the people in the community that you can do this. You can also fly while you're doing it. You can reach so many people and build a community that really just makes a lasting impact. So overall, like you said, I like to have fun. I'm also in those books, but I'm also a little bit, I might step a toe in the streets and then come back in,
They come back in.
I like to be at home most of the time, but there's nothing like you have to live life every day. You never know when it's your last. So you might as well have fun while you do it.
I love it. So as I was listening to you, I I hope that enough students who are listening, uh, what I got from it is you don't have to miss out. You don't have to miss out on the things that you really want to do just because there's this other hard set of things that you're doing. Might look easy to you, but
Mhm.
hard set of things that you're doing. And I really, really love that. Um, I hope that every single student who's hearing the sound of my voice, I know that Dr. Grayson just said that she is not a celebrity academic. I'm still going to refer to her as a celebrity academic. So be kind. Be kind. Everyone hearing the sound of my voice, be kind when you send her any messages. But they've got to check out your website. Your website is dynamic with regards to the type of unspoken inspiration that it could give for young women who are interested in STEM and what STEM fields could look like. Because I do think that as we struggle, I'm going to use the word struggle in academia, to retain the interest of young women in STEM, it might be the presentation. And I'm not saying things need to always look like fun or things always need to look glitzy and glamorous. But the generation that we're in, they kind of do need things to look palatable to them. There we go. So I want them to check out your website. Even presidents of universities should be checking out your website because it might give them a little bit of a clue with regards to, wait, hold on, there's something here. Okay, all right. So I want to so really back into HBCU now. Let's reel it back into HBCU. So I have this fun thing on the podcast that I call the rapid fire segment, and you're Dr. Grayson, so I expect you to know the answer to this question even before I start the rapid fire.
No
I
pressure.
do it in 67 seconds. Why do you think I do it in 67 seconds instead of 60 seconds? You know this.
Something. Do I know this?
You do. The minute I say, you'll be like, oh gosh, I knew that.
I feel like I'm gonna do that then. I'm like 67. You're thinking like 1967.
1867. 1867.
First HBCU, 1867.
Not the first, but 10 HBCUs were founded in
Mm.
1867. So, in honor of it being the year when the largest number of HBCUs were founded, I just decided to be a nerd. So, I don't know why I get excited about that, but I do get excited about it.
Oh, I like that. See, I was close.
You were. You were, absolutely. So, are you ready for your rapid fire segment in 67 seconds?
All right, let's go. Let's
All
take
right,
it.
let's do this. Okay. Describe your HBCU experience in one word.
Mm, majestic.
Majestic. Oh, I like that. We haven't gotten that yet. I love it. Okay. If your time in college was a song, what song would it be?
Swag surfing.
Okay. If you remember, what was your best meal at your HBCU?
Soul Food Thursdays.
Soulful Thursdays. Ooh, the answer's 10. I was going to ask on a scale of 1 through 10, what kind of a student were you? The answer's 10, isn't it?
Yeah.
The answer's 10. The answer's 10. That was boring. That was boring. My apologies. Shout out your favorite professor and what did they teach?
Dr. Katina Hall and chemistry.
Nice, nice. Big 10, favorite sport?
Basketball.
Basketball, favorite basketball player?
You know I gotta go with my girl Angel Reese.
I love it. 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 Last question. Who? What would you have wanted to tell? And this should be good for you. So, Dr. Grayson, you have to be honest because you said you are an introvert.
Yeah.
And introverts don't always say what's on their mind. So you have to be honest about this.
Okay.
What would you have wanted to tell your college roommate but didn't? Her eyes enlarged.
Couple. So I'm like, which one would I want to tell something? Okay, so my first roommate during the summer before I started school, because we had to come the summer before. It was part of the program. She was a weird girl, and I've always wanted to tell her that you were kind of rude to me.
You were kind of rude. Yeah.
I don't think she'll ever see this. I don't even know where she is right now, but I really think she was a rude girl. Other than that, other my roommates, they were great.
Yeah. Can I tell you why I love that? And I love the fact that you didn't clean it up.
I wasn't teaching.
I love the fact that you went for it and said you were rude, and I would have wanted to tell you that you were rude. And the reason why I love that is humans are not always nice. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And I kind of need people to sometimes know the effect that they had on others. This is just Tosin being selfish. This is just me being selfish. Sometimes I want them to know that you had an effect on people. And even if she never sees us, somebody else will see it, right?
Right.
Who may not necessarily be leading with the kindest of spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping it checks them a little bit, that
Mm-hmm.
people get affected by the things that you say and the things that you do and the way that you are around them. So, Dr.
Thank
Grayson, thank you so much for not copping
you.
out and just giving us something easy.
Of course. That was fun.
Thank you, thank you. So, I always ask everybody to tell us how they, and you've already shared that your parents weren't particularly up on the terms. I don't think most of our parents were on
Mm-hmm.
PWI and HBCUs when we were going to college. I did not know what any of them were when I was going to college. How did you pick Norfolk State University? What was your college selection journey?
And that's a great question. And one I talk about often. So, when I was in high school, again, being a military brat, I finished my last 2 years at a high school in Virginia, which was Maury High School. And I had a guidance counselor there, Tiffany Walker, who really pushed me to look at my education differently and more seriously than I was
Hmm.
at the time. Because all I wanted to do was play basketball. I was an athlete and do photography. Like that kind of was what I liked. But then, I was really good at chemistry, really good at math, and, pretty good at English. So she was like, all right, I'm going to put you in a whole bunch of AP classes so we can make sure you're ready to go for college. And thank goodness she did. She about killed me. I literally had the weirdest sleeping schedule as a high school senior. I would come home, go to sleep because I'd be so tired after practice. And then I'd wake up and do my homework. And then I'd go to class. Like that's just kind of how it was for me for like the last couple of months until I graduated. So she also, being the dynamic woman she is and kind of pushy, she's like, all right, you're going to apply to these schools. And she made me apply to 14 colleges in the region. I ended up getting into all of them and had almost 400K in scholarships. And she's like, all right, so now you need to go tour them and see which ones you like and where you want to go. So my mom, being the supporter she is, went with me to everyone. She took time off of work and she was like, all right, we're going to go to Emory, or we're going to go to William and Mary, or we're going to go here, and we're going to make sure you get to see everything to make your decision. And so we went to Norfolk State and we met Dr. McLean, who was head of the DNEMA scholarship that I applied to. So DNEMA is the DeSort's National Institute for Mathematics and Applied Sciences. So basically, all the smart Black kids, or those that really enjoyed science or wanted to major in STEM, we went through that program. And I met a lot of my friends actually doing debutante in the area. We found out a lot of us were actually going to Norfolk State under the same scholarship. And that's actually how I met my best friend, Dr. Tariel Jones. And so at the time, all this I didn't know, but went there, met Dr. McLean. She reminded me so much of like members of my family. And she like assured my mom, like, I'm going to take care of your daughter and make sure she gets an education. And that I think was the only time we really had that interaction when we went to schools, that somebody really was going to take the time and invest and make sure I reached the levels that they thought I could reach. And also, Norfolk State was the only school that gave me a full ride scholarship. I had some halves and some partials, but Norfolk State was like, we'll cover everything, tuition, board, books, whatever you need. Just come to school, come for the summer, get ready so you can test into your classes and you can go on. And so it came down to, I was between Emory and Norfolk State. Emory was my number one school, but all in all, it just cost too much. And I
Mm.
know how my parents were going to pay for college, and I didn't want them to have that kind of financial stress or burden, or me. So I chose Norfolk State. And thank God I did, because it was the most enriching, safe, fun environments I've ever been in. And I tell everyone I never regret my HBCU experience at all. It's made me who I am, the scientist who I am, the advocate I am today. And there's nothing like an HBCU homecoming. There's nothing like HBCU staff. There's nothing like HBCU friends, or even the HBCU network. Because everywhere we go, whether I run into an Aggie or a Rattler, like we all may talk crap to each other, but there's love there because we all understand the experience of what it's like to be surrounded by people that genuinely, truly care about you and get you. And so that's how I got to Norfolk State.
I love it. I love it, and I'm going to keep saying this on I can't get blue in the face. Such a phrase. But I'm going to keep saying it. If I had a penny, a dollar, I prefer a dollar, for every time financial viability of one's education was a part of the decision making for college,
Mhm.
I'd be rich.
Yeah.
And I want to keep harping on it
Hmm.
because it is truly a deterrent for some,
Yes.
black and brown especially,
Hmm.
to picking a college that would fulfill them. So
Hmm.
they may still end up at college, but picking a college that would fulfill them. And worse yet, if they still decide to go and they get riddled with debt, it
Yeah.
becomes literally a noose around their neck for quite a bit of time. So, to the powers that be, i.e., politicians and so on and so forth, I hope they're hearing us. That it's a big deal and it's such a big factor in the manner in which we decide where we're going to matriculate. But I'm grateful Norfolk had you, and I'm grateful that you passed through Norfolk. Doctor, I'm going to keep calling you Dr. Grayson because I just like the way it rolls off the tongue. So, Dr. Grayson.
Yes.
And Grayson, I'm not kidding. Grayson is one of my favorite names. There's a little kid, an associate of mine, has a newborn son, and his name is Grayson. And I wear that name out because I just love the name Grayson.
My
Okay.
cousin's name is Grayson. One of my
See,
cousins called me.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. As you were talking, I couldn't help but feel the weight of and I say thankless in quotes because I know the Dr. Graysons of the world have long since gone back and thanked the persons that had an impact in their life. But the way you described, first of all, your counselor in high school,
Hmm.
but then the way you described the person that was over the program
Yeah.
that
Love
you
my.
were a part of, yes,
Hmm.
you describe persons who, and you use the word advocate, you
Hmm.
described persons who I hear them wanting to do two things: assure your family that you're safe and you'll
Hmm.
be safe here.
Hmm.
But I also hear them believing in you. And it didn't matter whether or not you believed in yourself. And I'm not saying you didn't,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it didn't matter because, especially the way you described your high school counselor,
Yeah.
and she voluntold you on so many moments to
Hmm.
apply
Hmm.
to these spaces.
Hmm.
She believed in you.
Yeah.
I want to believe that you've experienced that at a Big Ten. I want to believe that you've experienced that at an Ivy League. But could you share with us the uniqueness that exists at an HBCU? Because I run into that a lot.
Yeah.
And this uniqueness to just believe in
Yeah.
you no matter what.
Yes. I think I experienced it in different ways at these other institutions, but where the HBCU experience, I think it was more authentic because it was coming from people who knew how important it was to get education, who knew as a Black child the opportunities, but also the hardships we would go through once we left. So one of the other people, my favorite professor, Dr. Katina Hall, who was my chemistry professor, she was also one of those who looked at me and was like, I think you should change your major. Because I was
Hmm.
biology before. And she was like, I think chemistry would do better for you because you definitely have a more analytical, critical thinking type of mind. And I think you would do very well. And when Dr. Katina Hall spoke, you did what she said. So I switched my degree, and it was like one of the best decisions. I fell in love with chemistry again in her class. And I think it was also like her bravado and her confidence and how she taught and how she ran the class that helped me when I transitioned into these other institutions to let me know that I'm smart and I have a brain. I'm here and I'm meant to be here. I remember her saying certain things like, even when I'm wrong, I'm right. And as a student at the time, we were all like, lady, that doesn't make sense. Like, when you're wrong, you're wrong. What do you mean? But what she meant by that, she's like, I have so much confidence in myself and I'm going to say anything in such a way that even if I am wrong, you're going to think I'm right. And boy, was she, even if she had a question wrong, which she rarely did, but if she had like something wrong on the board, we all thought it was right. We had no clue. She was like, "So y'all didn't catch my mistake?" We were like, "Mm." And so I think that helps carry it on to where when I got to these spaces where now I'm maybe the only or other or just not of many, I carried that confidence with me. I carried that support with me. My mom was the first person to teach me about self advocacy and was the first one to definitely push me in certain directions that I didn't know could go or thrive in. And I'm like, I have all of these great examples of women who had confidence, believed in me. I can't let them down. So therefore, I'm not going to let anyone talk to me any kind of way. I'm not going to let you put your beliefs on me. I'm not going to let you disrespect me. And so it took me a while to really come back in a way where people also understood me that were from different cultures. Because a lot of times when I'll say this, like, when you argue with siblings, you argue with your siblings in a specific type of way, right? You go for the jugular. And you can't do that in all these other institutions, right? Because then you become the aggressor,
Mm.
you become sassy, you become difficult to work with. And I was like, okay, well, then I'm gonna hit you with the same kind of energy you give me. So if you want to say something crazy to me, I'm gonna ask you why you said it. I need to know the reasons why behind it, so you can also understand how ignorant that was. Okay, you want to say something else to me? I'm gonna call you unprofessional, and I'm gonna go to the higher ups because I don't want to deal with this. Versus me just cussing you out. So
Mm.
it evolved over time, and I took from such those great examples of women how they dealt with conflict and how they advocated for themselves and advocated for us as students. And I think it helped make my experience not necessarily better, but helps me navigate it better when I was in these different institutions.
Wow. Wow. What's her name? It's Dr. Katina Hall.
Yes. It was Dr. Patrick. I'm so used to
Dr.
calling her
Patrick.
Patrick, but that's not her name anymore. But it's Dr.
Okay.
Tina Hall.
Dr. Katina Hall. I wish for more Dr. Katina Halls all over HBCUs. I'd love to say that I am of that ilk. I am. And in the sense that it's not about bruising you. It's not about hurting your feelings. It's about strengthening you in the way that you need to be strengthened.
Yes.
And dare I boldly say that the cohort of students that I get to see and I have gotten to see over the last few years get bruised easily by
Mm-hmm.
the Dr. Katina Halls. And
Mm-hmm.
I want them to, you don't know Dr. Katina Hall, but you're going to see Dr. Korie Grayson. And
Mm-hmm.
I want you to understand that a Dr. Katina Hall emboldens a Dr. Korie Grayson.
Yes.
And I say all of this to say those who are, because anytime, if you can't tell, anytime I have an HBCU alum on this podcast, I'm in love. I'm in love because I do this for the students. But you know how it is hard for you to see beyond yourself?
Yes.
But you, the Dr. Korie Graysons of the world, and every HBCU made guest that I get lucky to speak to, you are the sight beyond themselves that they get to see. So I'm always really grateful when the alumni are on. And I want every student who's hearing the sound of my voice and who's seeing the gorgeousness of Dr. Grayson on their YouTube screens to, she is gorgeous, like literally. I want them to hear that the professor that just pats you on the back for everything you do, right, wrong, and indifferent, I'm sorry to say, I don't know how helpful that is. I want you to find the Dr. Halls who's going to tell you I'm right even when I'm wrong, and challenge you to challenge her for saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you can see somebody do that, then you know that you can also speak for yourself, and it's your confidence that's speaking for you. Toast and stop talking. The conversation is supposed to be with Korie, not you.
That was good.
Um, what now that you're here, right? And you've got so much more to do that I know all of us are looking forward to. But now that you're here, flashback for a hot second.
Mm-hmm.
What would you want to tell your freshman self?
That is such a good question because freshman Corey was definitely a different Corey. Similar in some aspects, but definitely different. Um, I think I would want to tell her that just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. You're headed in the right direction. Your trials and hardships after were there for a reason, and it brought you to where you are. And you're going to be surprised at how many people you impact and inspire. Don't run from it, embrace it, and do as much as you can to bring the next person up, which I know you will. So I think that's what I would say to freshman Court.
I love it. Keep putting one foot in front of the other is what it sounds like, no matter what. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I have to ask this because if you went to an HBCU, you know that as much as we love them, and we do hard,
Yes.
they challenged us. And sometimes those challenges were good.
Yes.
I've never visited Norfolk. I need to.
Mm-hmm.
What was the most frustrating aspect of attending your HBCU?
What is a good question? I think, and this may be trivial to some, but our scholarship required us to live in the dorm for 4 years with a roommate every year. So instead of, you see your classmates going off to the suites and they have their own room and their own privacy, and you're just like, all right, I still have a suite mate with 6 people, 2 in each room. Like, what is privacy? What is that? But I can say they moved us into an honors dorm, and
Okay.
we had a wash bowl so women could go down and do our hair, like a literal salon. So that definitely was a privilege.
Okay.
We could congregate and study downstairs, so that was a privilege.
Nice.
Most HBCUs, they definitely don't allow girls and guys to live on the same floor. That's usually a no-no. So, but at least in ours, we had girls, guys, versus just an all-girls dorm or all-guys dorm.
Okay.
The flooding, so Norfolk State's built on a golf course, and so when it rained, it poured, and when it poured, it flooded. And so you definitely had to have your rain boots or something, or else you were going to get wet walking across campus.
Yeah.
I think those are the things. I didn't really have to deal too much with financial aid. I know that comes up in some of the conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that can be a real hardship, or even sometimes there can be issues with just finances in general across. But being in a scholarship program kind of helps shield a lot of us from having to deal with
Absolutely.
that. And so I'm grateful for that. So I think those would be my only complaints. At first, it was walking across the campus as well, I think, in the very beginning. But then when you go to other universities and you see how much bigger they are, literally just miles, I'm like, I'm going to shut up. I need the exercise anyway.
Dr. Grayson, let me tell you. So, my undergrad was spent at Kentucky State University, and Lord have mercy. I think I'm at my heaviest, and I'm 5'10" 3/4.
Oh,
At my heaviest. Tall sister, I love it. I love it. I love it. The walking you refer to, because it's Frankfort, Kentucky. There's nothing else there but Kentucky State University. If you haven't visited, all the walking I did, the heaviest I ever was, I'm not making this up, was 125 pounds. To be that tall, and she enlarged her eyes, and you're quite right, because no matter what you ate, which college food isn't that great. Let's keep it real. I was walking everywhere, and I was a foreign student. My parents were not getting me a car, so you're going to walk everywhere. So you don't get to complain about the walks that you did, because I think I've got you beat. I think
I think it wasn't until I went to Cornell and I was walking up hills in snowstorms.
Oh,
was so much better.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I do want to bring up, and I know I started with it and I
Mhm.
leaned right back into HBCUs,
Yeah.
but I do want you to, and you've got the best, I consider you having the best of both worlds, if you were to ask me.
Mhm.
But I do want you to share with those who, let me stop rambling and tell you where this question is coming from. I have literally heard some students get the advice that if they went to an HBCU, they must go to a non HBCU for grad school.
Okay.
I've heard that.
Mhm.
And I think we can all admit that even if we haven't heard it, we've seen a pattern, right?
Mhm.
That many people would choose that instead.
Mhm.
You went to both. What would you advise somebody to do? If you were the advisor, I came to you and I'm like, Dr. Grayson, I'm graduating, gonna go work for a couple of years, and then I want to go to grad school. And don't give me the Dr. Grayson answer. I think I know what your answer is going to be. I think I know it. I saw the look on her face and I'm like, I know what her answer is going to be. I want you to actually compare them for me intentionally.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
would your answer be?
Okay. This is it would depend on the major that they're asking to go back to school for, and it would depend on the kind of experience that they're looking for.
I'm
So
looking
it would have to be individual to the student. But what I want to say is HBCUs currently there are R2s, if not an R1, right? And so we're working our way towards that. And so, with that being said, R1 being like a high research intensive university, R2 just like a high research intensive, like very high versus high. And with that, it limits the amount of degree programs that can be at an HBCU.
Mm-hmm,
There's
mm-hmm.
not a lot of HBCUs with biomedical engineering programs or just engineering programs across the board. They cater more towards undergrad degrees. Nothing wrong with
Yes.
that. Even my field, biomedical engineering, was not offered at my HBCU. Engineering was optical, electrical, but I was interested in chemistry. And so when I got to grad school, I had to take courses to catch up to
Mm,
that type of
mm.
engineering level. And so I do think that if the program is offered at an HBCU, go to an HBCU. There are great professors. There are great things you can do with your degree, what master's, PhD, whatever it is that you seek. And you still get that great, loving atmosphere
Mm,
that oftentimes is not afforded to you when you go to a Big Ten, Ivy League, or all these other institutions. I went to where I went because that's where the program was offered. That was, a program that's recognized. And I knew afterwards, people, oh, you went to this university, you got this degree. Still to this day, people are like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I know. So it would just depend. Like, what is it that you seek? What kind of
absolutely.
environment that you want to be in? But I do advocate strongly for us pursuing graduate degrees at HBCUs for sure. But oftentimes we'll have to go to an Ivy League or a Big Ten or wherever we need to get it, and that's fine because they need some
Absolutely.
more little razzle dazzle and some swag to pop up in these places anyway.
Yes.
So that would be my answer. I hope it wasn't too Dr. Grayson for you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, Dr. Grayson, I could talk to you forever. Number one, and I said this to you before we started recording, you've got like the perfect radio voice that one could just listen to. Um, but I am going to bring us to a close. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I
Okay.
want you to finish this sentence for me. Because of my experience at my HBCU, I will not.
Oh, it's a good one. I will not take it for granted.
I will not take it for granted. Thank you. I love that. Is there anything that, okay, Chosen, I knew you were going to ask me this, but you didn't, or there's something that you want to just bless the audience with before we bring this to a close?
Well, I'm a researcher and I'm a nerd, but there was a study released recently that showed that Black students that went to HBCUs versus those that went to non-HBCUs are less likely to develop chronic diseases in their lifetime. And that has, I think, a lot to do within that study. They showed the amount of support that they receive from the professors or mentors there, the encouragement, the community. And so I advocate strongly if you're looking for a different experience, every experience isn't going to be perfect in what you think it is. But if you're looking for one where you feel loved and you see yourself and you see the support, I think it's really important that you consider an HBCU in your decision and understand that going to an HBCU doesn't make your degree less than anyone else that went anywhere. It's really about what you do with it, how you use it, and how you inspire others to make sure, that they can do the same.
With that, I can only imagine what you're going to say when I ask you to end this episode with one short word or phrase on why you love HBCUs.
I love HBCUs because it is a safe, beautiful, encouraging place for Black people to thrive.
It's a safe for me. It's the word safe for me. Dr. Grayson, I appreciate you. And to those listening and to those watching, thank you for tuning into I Love My HBCU question mark. Please go and visit Dr. Grayson's website. Stalk her Instagram like I do periodically. Norfolk State University is proud to have her as an alumna. I hope that I have earned the pleasure of you subscribing to I Love My HBCU question mark on all of your platforms. And how could you not like this episode with Dr. Korie Grayson as my guest? Dr. Grayson, thank you so much. And to everybody else, yours in HBCU love. See you next episode. Thanks, Dr. Grayson.
Thanks, Dr. Tosin.
You've been listening to I Love My HBCU question mark. Let's keep the conversation going as we share our stories and encourage more practical support of HBCUs, whilst of course holding each other accountable. Don't forget to follow and subscribe for the latest episodes. Until next time, love and lift your HBCU.